Well, me being me, I couldn't leave it alone. And I'm feeling a lot better today, and I'm walking around a lot more. Legs are still badly bruised, but not as sore, most definitely not. Now I've turned my attention to fixing the Bandit. I've already fitted this rear fairing, which I had already, you'll see from other videos, which I fixed cracks on. But now that I'm going to paint the tank, I'll probably paint that as well. Wondering what to do with this. And then I remembered I had an old one from, as you saw in videos before, that came on the bike when I got it, and it was damaged, so I decided to have a go at it, trying to straighten it out. So this is as far as I've got so far. Not looking too bad. It's a little bit deep in here. It needs to be shallowed up to make it look exactly like the other side. As you can see, it's a little bit deep there. I need to bring it up shallow, but it's not looking too bad. And of course I'll fill in all them pits and stuff, and we'll get it sprayed, and hopefully that tank will do. I'll know when I get more filler and see how this turns out in here. But that's the progress I've made. I've straightened all this up at the front, the headlight. It's not looking too bad. It's a little bit hard to keep straight now. It does lean a little bit to the right there, but could be worse. And I have a new mudguard to get yet. I haven't got one for it. I have a new set of clocks on the way. Managed to find some. I have levers, 2 levers on the way for the brakes and the clutch, which I didn't need one for the clutch, but I'm putting one on anyway. I have mirror holders too on the way, and that should be it, more or less fixed up. I shortened the exhaust a little bit, and it looks a lot better. There's not as much dinting or anything like that. It looks a lot better. So I'll straighten this tank out as best I can, and we'll see what it looks like, and if I'm happy I'll just paint it, and if not I'll look for a silver one, but I know that they're expensive, 150, 200 euros maybe. But I had this one in the shed anyway, and I thought I'd give it a go. And it means painting, it means repainting it, which means if I'm going to do that I'll probably paint the back fairing as well, and the mudguard probably, which if I can't find a silver mudguard I'll probably have to paint it anyway, so I may as well just paint the mudguard, tank and rear fairing all together and just have it over with. But that's as far as I've got. You can see that that light is leaning a little bit to the right there, and I can't seem to stop it from doing that. It's slightly bent or something somewhere, and I have to figure out why it's doing that, but it could be worse. Yeah, so I'm back out at the Bandit again today. This is not the tank that was on the Bandit when it crashed. This is one that I had, as you'll see from my first videos of the Bandit when I got it. This is a tank that was already on it, and it had been a little bit damaged, but not as damaged as the one that I have now. And I decided to try and repair it. So I've been filling it up here. I know it looks rough, but this is what you do. You heat the stuff up. You get a good 40 grit paper, and you really rough up the surface in a crosshatch pattern. And then you mix up some of this, hold on a second, I'll show you what I'm using. I'm using Isopon P38, and that in Ireland is quite difficult to get other types of body filler, but that's the usual one that you'll find in most stores, and it seems to do an alright job. It's quite hard to work with, but yeah, it works, it's fine. So you heap it up in layers, right? So the first one you fill in the dents and you leave it rough. So I filled that one in, and I hadn't got any in it before. You can see how rough it is. And you leave it to dry. Then you get a 40 grit, or a good rough one like 40 or 80 grit, to smooth out the surface a bit. And you start to try and shape it. And you won't get it perfect the first time. There's going to be little pits in it and things, but you'll get a rough idea of what way it's going and what shape it's going to be in. And then you go over the second layer and you fill in all the pits and bits that you need to fill, and get any high areas. Now when you're doing the like of this outside surface here, you're better off to go with a block sander and not just by hand, because it'll show up in the paintwork if there's any low areas and things like that. So that's what I have been doing. I've been block sanding that. Unfortunately I can't block sand in here because it's meant to be dished, so I'm gonna have to do that by hand. And it was well dinted in, and I need it to look like this. You can see that that surface isn't that pronounced, isn't that pushed in, so I needed to get it to that sort of a look. I'm getting close there, but I'm not there. I may need a second layer to get it there, but it's getting close. So I'll smooth that all out. I'll see what it looks like, and then I'll probably add in just a little bit more on top, and that'll get me close to where I need to be to get it to look like this. I'm trying this. I don't know if it's going to work out, because shaping this stuff isn't easy, and getting it shaped perfectly like this is probably going to be quite difficult. But look, I'm willing to give it a shot, because tank is like 200 quid, 150 quid maybe, so it's well worth using what you have and trying to repair what you have. So that's what I'm doing. I went back to the scene of the accident because I was missing the clocks off the bike, and unfortunately they're just they're no good. Everything's ripped out of the back of them. The casings for the back are all destroyed, so totally useless, no good to me. Interestingly, you'll see that my rev counter, well, I've moved it now, was near 11,000 revs, and the speedometer has come to rest at 20 miles an hour, which I know is not correct, because I know I was going at least 40 miles an hour when I or 50 even. Yeah, it was 50 when the accident started to happen. So for it to drop from 50 to 20 in a couple of seconds, I don't think is right. But that's what it says. I know for a fact from my legs and everything else that I came out a lot harder than that. Anyway, that's what I'm at today, and I'll give you a little look whenever I flatten this first layer off on this, and we'll see what we look like. By the way, just for the professionals that are going to give out about the amount of filler that I'm putting on this, you'll see inside the lid, I don't know if you can see that, I'll just stick on a light if I can. You'll see inside the lid that there's a kind of a lip, and that is stopping me from getting any bending irons or anything in there to straighten this out. And that's the only reason I replaced the tank the last time, was I could get nothing in there to work at it, to try and get the dents out of it. So I have no choice but to do it this way. I know it's not the preferred thing, because filler, a lot of the time, if you don't do it right and it doesn't get a good grip on the surface, it can come off. But look, it's only this area here that's pretty deep with it. The rest is kind of, the dents weren't that bad and weren't that really deep on it. So hopefully it's going to work out alright. So this stuff's pretty hard to sand down. So what I start with is a 40 grit. You can see there, it's not the best paper, it should be a P40, but anyway, 40 grit is what I'm starting with. And 40 will bring it down pretty quick, but be careful, because you can misshape things you don't want to misshape. So you just need to be careful of that. And when you get it down to rough shape you want it, then you start to go to finer grits of paper and then smooth it out a bit. Oh, by the way, I'm also using a sanding block, as you can see, as I mentioned earlier, to keep everything level and to find all the low spots that need filling again. Yeah, so I've been at this for a while now, and you can see I've managed to try and start shaping the dish into it. And you'll see that I keep redrawing my lines so that I don't lose the run of myself. And I know exactly where the edges were. And compared to the other side. Now you can see all of this low areas, all this massive pitting. I'm going to fill that in now again with a lighter coat on top. And we're going to try and start straightening it all out now to try and get it into a sort of a place where we could spray it and be kind of half happy with it. So that's what I'm going to do now. Well, I think you'll agree that that's starting to look an awful lot better. You can still see the odd little pit, but they won't show up. Smaller ones won't show up when you're using a filler primer. These ones will. So I'll have to get them filled in, them couple of pits. But we've got the general shape. It's looking pretty good. If you compare it to the other side, the way it should look. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to mix up a little bit now. I'm going to put little tiny spots in where the pits are. And I'm going to go away with my kids for a wee while, and I'm going to come back and it'll be ready for the next go. Okay, so how are we looking now? Lovely and smooth. You can see the shape of that there. I know it looks weird with all of the different patches of filler, but we're looking to get it to look like that. Right, I'm going to talk a little bit about paint, because I never do talk about how I paint things or prep for paint on my channel. And the reason for that is because a lot of professional paint guys are a bit up their own ass about how you prepare things and all of this, which they're probably right. If you're doing something wrong, maybe they can tell you, but some of them don't tell you in the nicest way. I don't claim to be an expert on painting. I do have an idea of how to prepare stuff for paint, and this in particular, because I was using 80 and 40 grit to do all this filler, shape it up. I'm going to start assuming that you have stripped your paint to the metal, right? And you have ran over it with let's say 80 grit paper. Now I was down at 40 because I needed to cut through this stuff all quickly, but I'm going to just go from the fact that, let's just say I'd used 80, right? So it's as simple as this. You scratch it up with 80 grit paper first. You make sure that there's no shiny parts on the metal, it's all scratched evenly. Then you move on to another grit of paper, so 80, then you would maybe move on to 120 grit. So you would run over it with 120 grit. Again, it must look uniform, no shiny patches, no deep scrapes in it. Then you would move on from 120 grit to 180, and you jump up in steps like that there until you're at 400 grit, and 400 grit would be the last you would use before priming the piece. Now in saying that, if you had a piece like this tank here which was already painted and there was nothing wrong with the paint surface previously, you could just rub it down with 400 grit, which is what I have done with a lot of this here. So you'll see that it's a very matte look to it. There's no shiny pieces, and that's what you want to see. You don't want to be seeing, here's a little bit up at the top around the rim now, which I didn't do deliberately. Yeah. You can see it, that's shiny. The paint wouldn't stick to that, so you would have to get your 400 grit out and make that matte like the rest of it here. Now I deliberately didn't do this patch here because I want to reference it against this. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to primer this with some cheap primer, just to see how it's going to come up, and it'll show any imperfections that's going to come up, and then I'll fix them. Just another word about painting. Make sure you get all of the edges as well. See the way I've left edges here, and these are shiny. I'll have to go with them. If you don't do that, the paint won't stick to them, and the next thing you'll have the whole panel painted and your paint will start to lift because you haven't got it stuck right down to the very edge. Right, that's as much as I can tell you about prepping for paint right now. I'm going to try and skid a bit of primer over this surface here to see how it looks, and I'll get back to you. I guess we didn't come out too bad when you compare it to the other side. There is an odd hump or bump there, you can see just there, where I didn't get the line just right, but these lines are very, very hard to get right. This is exactly the reason why I put a new tank on the bike the last time, and I didn't bother with trying to do this. It's not the worst outcome. You can see another lump there somewhere, so I don't know if I'm happy with that or not. I'd probably be happy enough to try and spray it and see how it came up, but would I be wasting my time when I can just get a silver tank and put it on at less cost than the paint? Probably. It's probably what I'll do. Even though this doesn't look terrible bad, I think I'm probably going to replace the tank. But it wasn't a whole waste, at least to know I have a tank here that could be used if it was needed, I guess. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't hammer it out because I couldn't get in there. There's a lip. There's a little lip down there, and you can't get any levers in because they can't get past the lip. They just go straight to the bottom. You can't hook it up. So it is what it is. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know by the way the light's shining there, it looks a lot worse to use than it does to me. And from 10 foot away, you probably wouldn't see it when it's sprayed, you know. But that's just it. Unfortunately, probably going to replace the tank. Yeah. So I don't know if you can see that. I mean, it looks the way a Bandit should look, almost. There's a little shoulder here from where the dent was, and I thought it tapped it down enough, but I obviously hadn't. So that's going to be a real pig to get rid of. There's another shoulder. I don't know if you can actually see it from here. Yeah, you can see it now. There's another shoulder there, which was the same. I tapped it down with the hammer, but I thought I'd put it down enough. I hadn't. So I could spend another day or two sorting this out before it'd be perfect for paint. I have got the kidney shape and all back into it and the way it should be, but I'm just not happy. I'm a perfectionist, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm one of them. So this is not going to do. So I will keep the tank. Maybe it will come in useful to somebody else at some stage. But I'm going to replace the tank with another one, and it'll probably be a different colour when I buy it. But I'll prep it with 400 grit paper and I'll spray it, and that'll be it. I won't have to worry about any of this shaping stuff. But it was going to be difficult anyway. I knew that. You can see the edge in here, the way I would have to get them edges in perfectly well. It's just not that simple. I didn't do too bad. Really the only spot that you can see is that shoulder there, and the two shoulders. And as I said, from 10 or so many feet away, you might notice that when it's painted, but I will. So that's it, guys. Unfortunately, it just wasn't a success for me. Other people might look at it differently, but this is the way I look at it. So